Welcome back to the third and final episode of our series on the adult point journey. So you've made it past the early plateau, and now you're thinking about the long game. But what now? So many of us end up just taking whatever classes we can find, hoping for the best, missing crucial links along the way, and feeling frustrated by our lack of progress. I know, I've been there. Today, I'm joined again by the amazing Julie of Broche Ballet, who's coached hundreds of adult dancers, myself included, through building a sustainable and fulfilling point practice. If you've ever struggled to fit your training into a busy adult life or felt despair creeping in, Julie's guidance is going to change your outlook entirely. We also dive into how short practice sessions can move the needle of progress and why play might be the most important thing you're currently missing in your point training. As always, a quick note before we begin. This conversation is not a substitute for an individual evaluation, so make sure you're approved by a qualified teacher and fitted by a professional before going on point. The information presented in this episode does not constitute medical advice. Please consult a licensed medical professional regarding any injuries or pain. If you're ready to transform your point practice from feeling lost and aimless to something you're truly excited to show up for, this conversation is for you. Let's get into it. Hello, Julie. Welcome back.
Hi, Hannah. Great to be here.
Yes, I am super excited. This is going to be part 3 in our point series. So if you are listening and you haven't listened to part 1 and 2, definitely recommend you go listen to those. But today we're going to be jumping into kind of the long haul of our point journey, right?
Yeah, and that's where you are right now.
Yes, yeah, this one's going to be very relatable for me. I'm really excited to talk about this one because we're going to be talking more about after the 6 month to a year mark and kind of moving into the long game and sustainability of training and all that. And yeah, that's where I am. So I'm really excited for this one. So maybe to start, I know a lot of adult dancers don't really have a structured plan in place for their point journey. And I've talked to a lot of fellow adults and being kind of in this space of just like taking the classes we can find and showing up and like hoping hoping to see progress over time. But I know that you're a really big advocate for being intentional and having strategy in your point training. So why does that shift matter so much, and what do you see change when a dancer really starts to approach their point training with a plan?
I think the biggest thing about a plan is that you don't feel like you're wasting your time. One of the big things that adults hate to do is waste their time in anything in life. We don't want to sit in traffic. We don't want to wait too long in line at the coffee shop. We'll go to the one across the street, right? Like we don't want to waste our time. And if you're just showing up to class and after a year you look back and you're like, what do I have to show for myself? Like, what have I achieved? What have I accomplished? Like that question, I think is a really tough question because if you're looking in the mirror and you're like, I've achieved, I mean, not nothing, like you still came to class, you're still in good shape, like all of those things are achievements. But if you have specific goals and you don't feel like you are getting towards them, that can be a really difficult, a really tough question to answer. And it can really discourage you and kind of make you not want to keep going. And obviously, that's like the anti goal here. The goal here is if you're listening here and you want to keep going, our goal is to try to help you keep going, right? Obviously, we always said if you're done, you're done. That's fine. But if you don't want to be done, that can be really discouraging. So I think I'm always such an advocate about being intentional with your strategy. And I know it's so hard as an adult. You're busy. There's only like one person on point in your studio who you can take class with. You know, it's on Friday at 9:30 p.m. and you're like, I can't, I can't do that. Whenever it is, I know it's hard. But if you want to be in it for the long haul, really take a look at your goals. And I think a lot of adults assume that everyone has the same goals as them. And so you think that all the classes are working towards the same goals. But everyone has such different goals. When you really get out there and you start talking to people about their goals, it is so different. Some people with point, as we talked about in the first episode, just want to see what it feels like on their toes. And they're like satisfied with that. And other people want to do a variation in the center. They want to perform in their point shoes. They want to do a pirouette one day. Some people are like, I would never want to do a pirouette. Don't ever make me do a pirouette. That's not at all what I'm here for. So really look at yourself and see like what are your goals? Do you want to be able to dance freely? Do you want to be able to choreograph? Like what are your personal goals? And then look at the classes you're taking and say like are these classes helping me with my goals?
Yeah.
And sometimes just the sort of one-off point class that involves échappés and passés and relevés and first over and over, like sure it gets you super strong and it's not that it's not helpful, but if your goal is to learn a dance or a variation, like that's not that. If you're coming week after week and you're not seeing progress, like you still leaning over the bar, you still have a death grip, you can't let go, like you're kind of wasting your time. You're going to feel like you're wasting your time if you can't look at what's going on there and be like, what is happening here? So I think when you're really intentional, you can look at your training and your goals and say, like, how do I get these to match? So I'm actually using my time wisely, because your time is so precious in the ballet studio.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think to your point, it gets so discouraging when you feel like you're kind of just running up against the same things over and over. And I think one of the struggles that I've seen with, especially with like doing in-person classes and just showing up, is that a lot of times everyone's kind of at a slightly different place in their journey. And so you're basically just trying to jump into where the majority of the class is at. And so you might be missing all of these steps, in between your current level and where the rest of the class is operating at. So I'd love to talk about the sustainability aspect of point training over months and years, because I think that this is where adults struggle and end up burning out, like we've been talking about, just like getting discouraged, feeling like they're not seeing progress. And so like the burnout hits either because they feel like they don't have time, they feel like they haven't been able to develop a plan. There's so many reasons why, things can kind of start to fizzle out. But what can a realistic point practice look like for someone with a full adult life, like work, family, time limitations, all of the things? Are there any tips that you have for building a realistic training schedule as an adult dancer?
Yeah, this sort of 6 months to 12 month mark that we're talking about is really where you see that sort of burnout set in. Like, the basics of point at this point. You know how to, you know about an échappé, you know about a passe, you know about a bourrée, you know about a pas de bourrée. Like, you kind of get the idea, but there's kind of a big gap between getting the picture and feeling comfortable. That is a massive gap, and unfortunately, like, just continuing to show up doesn't usually like close that gap. Like, just showing up week after week to the same thing, like, unfortunately with ballet specifically, like, doesn't just fix that, because form matters so much. Like, how you do it matters more than the fact that you did it when you're at the higher levels. In the beginning, like, just showing up is what you have to do, but once you get past that point of like knowing kind of what you're doing, you have to be specific about how you do it. So when you're at this point and you're looking how long to actually practice and what to make it look like, first of all, think about balancing your flat and your point training based on your goals, right? So you still want to have some time in your soft shoes when you are on points, so you can keep working on everything. But if you're in a place where you really have point as one of your big goals, then start to think about taking away some of your flat classes and replacing them, as we talked about, with the bar and point shoes. Maybe you have to go online for that. I know that's not always as fun to have to go online than to go in the studio, but if you really have that goal, start to see if you can take a little bit of your flat time and give it to your point shoe time. So you're not spending 3, 4 times a week, 90 minutes on flat, and then you have no energy left in the tank for your point goals at the end of the day. So can it look like one soft shoe class every week or every other week, depending on how your in-person studio is? Like, some, in-person cultures is like you're coming every week, you're seeing your friends. Like, if that's the case, then keep up with that and don't switch to every other week. But see if you can drop that down a little bit, and then you have more time, because points takes less time than soft shoes. There's fewer things to work on, and your shoes can't last that long. Like, you can't do 90 minutes of point. I mean, you could, but probably not. It's rough. By the end of 90 minutes, like, your shoes are very soft and they've broken down a lot. And if you've got compressible feet, your toenails are touching the floor. And, it's just kind of gets more intense the longer you go, and not necessarily productive. So if you took a 90-minute session involving 30 minutes to and from the ballet studio, you now have 2.5 hours that you could put over 4 point classes at your house, or a private lesson, or something that can be a smaller thing if you don't have a 30-minute point class available to you that many times during the week. So that kind of takes that pressure off to have to keep going to your flat shoe classes 2 times a week. Like, I know it would be ideal. I get it. I get it. Other teachers listening to this podcast, like, I get it. We want you guys to do training every day, all the day, all the time. Like, but when that's not possible, that is my suggestion.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I have been continually surprised about with Point is really how much you can get done in 30 minutes. Like,
So
you can
much.
get so much done. And if you do a 5-minute warm up and you take that out of the 35 minutes, even, you're getting even more
Yeah,
done in 30 minutes.
so much.
And yeah, I think a lot of times there's barriers in our brain of like, if I can't set aside this huge chunk of time, then what's the point? But I have been really shocked over the last like 6 months, especially, of how much I've progressed just by doing a few days a week of 30 to 40-minute sessions and seeing so much more progress in that than doing, an hour every other week because I
Yeah.
built up so much in my mind that I was like, oh, I can't do it until I have time. And so inevitably I would go longer in between sessions. Whereas once I kind of overcame that mental block of like, no, just, and sometimes even it's almost, it's like a psychological cheat of even just telling yourself on the days where you like don't really feel it, like, oh, I'll just do 20 minutes. I'll just do 15 minutes because then by the time you get your shoes on, most of the time you want to keep going anyway.
Right. You're like, oh, this is all right. I'll keep going.
Yeah. So yeah, it
Yeah.
definitely, I think like the power of short sessions is such a great way to avoid the burnout piece.
And I think there's I had my very first teacher who taught me how to teach. She's where I kind of had my apprenticeship with to learn how to teach. Her name was Beth Kurtz. She was awesome. And she used to always tell me at the end of class, you have to leave the student wanting more. It's very important that you always finish with them wanting to come back. Not that they're just like dead and they never want to do ballet again. And I think with your point shoes, you have to leave the point session wanting to more, not just like, oh my God, this hurts so bad. I hate this. My shoes hurt. Like everything, like we've all been there. Okay. Like I know in episode one, we talked about the magic of points and all of that. But like once, if you're here with us in this episode, you know that like sometimes it just hurts really bad.
Sometimes it's not magical at all.
If you're listening to this wanting to get on point, plug your ears for a moment and just don't listen to this part. But there's a point when you just don't, and then it's a few days before you feel like putting your shoes on again because you just remember how much it hurts. So like take your shoes off, stop before you push yourself past that point where you're having a good time, and then it's easier to get your shoes on again because you're like, oh, that was fun. I want to do more of it. Like just don't push yourself to that place where you hate it or you like don't want to be in your shoes anymore.
Yeah, the psychology component of point is such a big part of
Huge.
all of it. It's huge.
Yeah.
It's so huge. I think
Yeah.
one of the things that tends to fall by the wayside in our busy adult lives is proper recovery. But
Mhm.
again, with the sustainability piece, recovery is such a big part of sustaining our point training over the long haul. So what are the
Mhm.
recovery habits that you recommend for both preventing like the mental burnout, but also the physical burnout and injury prevention?
So I think for mental to start there, keep a shoe log. Log how long you've had your shoes, how long you wore them that day, and what they felt like. Because sometimes you're out of day and you're just like, I feel like I suck today. And sometimes it's because you've been wearing your shoes for a while or whatever's going on. So start if you don't already know about how your shoes go, start with a log. Start with a log from the day you get your point shoes, how they feel, and then notice when you have to put in a thicker toe pad. Notice when the shank starts getting softer. Notice when the box starts getting a little bit mushier. Like notice these things and write them in a log. I think our shoes can really make us in our heads because they change. And so we think we're doing the same thing every week, but we're not doing the same thing every week. Your shoes are different every week. They're like a living, breathing organism somehow. Especially, I mean, even synthetic shoes, like I'm in a block A2 right now, and even it changes on me all the time, depending on how humid it is here in Florida or whatever's going on. So get to know the organism that you are wearing on your feet, and that will help you get out of your head about days when point is particularly hard. Because a lot of times you're like, oh, it's the 10-hour mark around there. That's when my shoes start softening and I know I need to put the extra pad in or whatever it is. Like you can start to predict it. That's the easiest win recovery. I think sometimes point is too slow to like write all of your wins every class because sometimes you're like, well, I have no wins. I just showed up today. Like that's all I can write. Because sometimes it takes a while to see the results. Yeah. So I think with point, a good like mental practice is to reflect on your shoes and to keep a log so you can start to notice patterns. Especially if you're around this 1 year mark and you're, new to understanding your point shoes.
Yeah.
And then physically, this is huge because your feet and your tendons in your feet and the fascia in your feet and all of this take a beating in our life. And then we put point shoes on and then they take another beating. And so it's really important that you find what your feet need. Everyone's feet is going to need something a little bit different. Whether you need bunion care, like mobilizing the big toe joint, stretching with the demi point. Maybe you need ankle mobilizations. Maybe you have stiff ankles and you need to do a lot of ankle circles and stretches for the ankle and massages over that ankle joint. Maybe the arches are always on fire the next morning and you need more rubbing and rolling on the bottom of the feet, the plantar fascia, more like that. maybe your Achilles get very tight and you need a deep calf massage, you need a deep ball massage in your calf. I love the knee squish where you are on all fours and you dig your knee into your calf, your other knee into your calf. It gives you so much pressure. That's what I always need. My biggest thing here is wear good shoes. Okay, if you put on a pair of high heels and walk around for 8 hours and expect Pointe to be fun, you're in for a surprise.
Yeah.
It is not fun. It is so painful to have worn painful shoes all day and then be in your Pointe shoes and then go back to painful shoes. Now I get it, we have jobs and all that stuff, but like, can you find a, glossy croc? Can you find, something that looks like presentable that you can wear that helps your feet, especially on those days before or after Pointe class? Like those are the days when you really want to be careful with your feet. And then just other little things like if you like heat packs after class, if you like ice baths after class, if you like to stick your feet over your head after class, these are little things that you can experiment with and see what feels good. Like those little aches and pains in your feet are telling you what your feet need, and listen to them, and then you'll enjoy Pointe a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is. It's like so much of it is just listening to your body. Like I know when I first started doing Pointe, I started having a lot of Achilles pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what is that about? And then I realized like I wasn't properly stretching and caring for my feet after class, and I incorporated some stretching like around the bottoms of my feet, like sitting back on my
Mm-hmm.
heels with my toes curled under, and just
Mm-hmm.
just introducing some new stretches that I wasn't doing because I didn't necessarily experience the same feelings just by taking a class in slippers, like
Right.
you'll feel a different type of soreness or
Totally.
aches and pains in different places probably in Pointe shoes than you will in your slippers. And so
Oh
I
yeah.
had to find some new things to incorporate. And once I did, I don't have pain anymore. I mean, there was a minute where I was like, oh my gosh, maybe I won't be able to do this anymore because this is so uncomfortable. But it really was just a matter of incorporating some new stretches, incorporating icing. I totally the shoe thing too. It's so funny. I used to love wearing like cute shoes and heels, and now that I do Pointe regularly, I just live in those ants recovery sneakers. Like
Yeah.
that's all I wear now. Like I don't even bother with like cute shoes hardly ever because
No,
I'm just like I don't care anymore. Like I just want to feel good for Pointe. Like that's that's
that's
the
right.
priority.
That's my
So,
cutest and most
yeah.
expensive pair is my Pointe shoes. So I'm gonna
Totally.
save my feet for that.
Yeah,
Oh, and
so
compression socks are also really helpful. I think you like
yes.
compression socks for your
I
Pointe shoes, right? They help
love.
so much with the blood flow down to your feet.
Yes, yeah, I love compression socks. And actually, the pair that I probably wear the most, I even wear sometimes while I'm doing Pointe. It's the Apollo Jewel sock. So it
Oh,
has the
yes.
cutout for the heels and toes. So you can literally wear them in your shoes. And so you're getting some ankle support. And then, yeah, compression socks after class. So, yeah, I think there's a lot that you can do to stay comfortable. Like you don't have to be miserable, after you do Pointe. If you're keeping up with your recovery and you're taking care of your body, like there's a lot of ways to still be able to walk around in comfort. You might have to add some things into your routine.
Right. It's not a self-maintaining system here. You have to
Yeah.
do a little bit of extra work.
Yeah, totally. So going back to what we had started to touch on earlier, I know a lot of adult dancers like me can only carve out small pockets of time to practice and
Mhm.
feel like that's what's standing in their way, like we talked about earlier. So what are your thoughts on short practice sessions and how to really maximize those and make them super effective?
I think Pointe is like learning a language. The more frequently you expose yourself to it, the more comfortable you're going to get with it, because it is so foreign to your body and to anything you've done before. I mean, unless you've done Irish hard shoe, then that's usually those people don't have too much of a trouble transitioning to Pointe because it's pretty similar. But in like barring that, it's very, very foreign, and you need regular exposure to it in order for those pathways in your brain to continue developing, in order for your nervous system to not freak out when you put the shoes on. And so I am a huge fan of short, frequent practice sessions when it comes to Pointe. Um, Obviously, it's so nice when you have longer time and you can do a longer Pointe class, up to a point, anyways. But I'm a huge fan of short and quick. I do a class type that I developed because I believe in this so much, and it's one of the big types that I teach. I call it 15 fabulous minutes of follow along Pointe work. The idea here is that it's follow along. You waste time learning combinations. Um,
Yeah.
Learning combinations is not a waste of time as far as developing your mind goes. But if you're not in Pointe class to develop your mind and you're just working on your feet, then just doing
Mhm.
16 releves or releves until the song ends or susus until you feel like you get them. Like that is a much quicker use of your time than learning a combination, waiting 2 minutes to learn it, then executing it for 2 minutes, and then getting feedback on what you forgot, and then executing it again. Like that is a very slow process. So if you just think about Pointe as like the gym, where you do 3 sets of 12 of your biceps, and you do 3 sets of 12 of your shoulders, and you do 3 sets of 12 of bicycles or whatever it is, thinking about your points, sort of like frequent workouts like that can be really helpful. So you're like, okay, I'm going to do 16 releves in first, 16 susu, 8 on each side, maybe 8 échappé, and you kind of play some nice music, some fun music, and make your session like that. So make a list of all the steps, how many you want to do, and just kind of go through like that. So then if you imagine having a 30-minute point class with combinations, you take the combinations out and you literally get 15 minutes. Like as a person who edits YouTube videos of a full class and then takes the combination, the explanation out, and you just get the class, it's like a half to 2/3
Yeah.
the length when you just take out the whole explaining part of it.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about a 30-minute point class cut down to 20 minutes, you get the same amount of work with no rest, which is actually even harder because when you're listening, you're resting. So no rest, and no wasted time there. So if you're going to do a short practice session at home or anything like that, I really suggest just doing reps and thinking about the work there, letting your mind think about your point shoes and not have to think about combinations. That is a huge way to win.
Yeah, I love those classes. I do them frequently on your platform because they do remind me of like it's like getting your reps in. It's like
Yeah.
quick and dirty, like getting in there, doing it. You're getting the exercise, like you're getting the burn, you're building the stamina, but it's getting the reps. I would love to know too, because I do think that is super effective and it's a great way to build strength and stamina and just be spending more time in your shoes. So for someone maybe even specifically, because I know a lot of my listeners are on your platform, do you have a recommended proportion of time that you would say maybe doing that type of class once a week, but doing more of like a standard point class twice a week or vice versa? Like, do you have suggested ratios for how you're kind of splitting your time?
I think it really depends. Again, I mean, not to be a broken record, but on your goals here. So if you really only have 15 minutes and you've got time to warm up your feet and put your shoes on, then do only those 15-minute classes in the busy seasons of your life. The times when you have more time, it's nice to practice thinking while you're wearing your point shoes, like using your brain while you're wearing point shoes, because that's like easier said than done. So having one standard point class, quote unquote, in a week, and then 2 or 3 15-minute sessions can be really great. And then I know we're going to talk about this throughout, but also, once a month, putting a variation in there, or what I call the artistry on point classes, where you're learning a single combination with beautiful music, like putting something in there that is more about one combination over a longer period of time versus just like throwing away different combinations here and there. So that would be kind of my ideal, like one quote unquote standard, 2 to 3 15 minutes, and then once a month replacing a couple of those with like a kind of variation or combination.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. I appreciate that. So in our last conversation, we talked about this idea of play in point
Mm-hmm.
work and how valuable that is. So in this time period of like 6 months and beyond, what does play look like as part of the ongoing
Yeah.
learning process? And what are some examples of using it for continued growth?
Yeah. So play is such a funny thing in that it's not fun
Yeah.
when you first start doing it. Okay, it's not fun. You will hate playing when you first start doing it, right? Like that's the funny thing about being adults and teaching adults is like quote unquote playing is not always like you know what I mean?
Like prying our fingers off the bar to like force
Yeah,
ourselves to play. Yeah.
exactly. I'm like, no, just play, be free, not easy. But here's a couple of concrete things that I suggest to do to play in your point shoes. Number one is to find your favorite song, whatever you're vibing right now. Find your favorite song, put it on, and make up a combo, make up a dance. Hold on to your bar. Don't worry about the center. Hold on to your bar. You can have so much fun doing stuff with the bar and just start seeing what the music inspires in your body. For the most part, if you put on a tango, your body's going to do something different than if you put on like a Lady Gaga or you put on, some metal music or whatever. Put on whatever is on your mind right now and let your point shoes tell you what they want. That can be really fun. Do one or two songs. That's it. And then take your pointe shoes off and you're done playing, or move on to something more structured. But try one or two songs and see how it feels. You might be surprised at what comes, and you wanted to listen to that song anyway, so you might as well have your pointe shoes on. That's the first thing I would try. Then I would try using a creative bar. So get a rolling suitcase out and try to use it as a bar and see what happens. Uh, get a like a little stick and hold it and try to do things with that. Just like kind of changing what you're holding on to can make things feel different and can help you stand up a little bit different way. Then I would also do things intentionally wrong. Like an artist knows how to break the rules, right? An artist knows what the rules are and then knows how to break them. So do things with a bent knee, or do things where you step up and see if you can just spin around, or do things that are just like for curiosity's sake and not so much because you're trying to do it correctly. Like you know how to do it correctly. If we're at this 12-month mark, like you get it, right? But just do it terribly, like on purpose, not unsafely. Like I mean, obviously not talking about sickling on your pointe shoes and on the pinky toe and all of that stuff, but like within, a sane reason,
Yeah.
like have some fun, do it terribly, do it awful, see what
Yeah.
happens. And then you're like, oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, it makes me think of how I feel like this is like a universal adult ballet dancer experience where like when you're in class and you're trying to do a pirouette and you're falling out of them, but then you do one at home in your kitchen and you
You're
just like
relaxed.
do a great pirouette. And
Yeah.
I definitely have had that similar experience with Pointe where sometimes whether it's in a live Zoom class or in an in-person class and there's a little more stress in our bodies and not being able to do something, but then when I'm just at home kind of goofing off in my shoes and just like trying to do something at the bar, you can magically do it much better because you're more relaxed. And so I think,
Yeah.
yeah, so often that's what even playing in them has looked like for me, has just been either taking time, like whether it's after doing a Zoom class or, just taking a pre-recorded class where I can kind of like hit, press pause and just try something in a completely different way. And a lot of times that's when you're developing that comfort. I think my
Hmm.
comfort level has gone up so much
Hmm.
in doing that kind of stuff and just being like, oh, let's see if I do it like this, or let's see if I shift my weight more this direction, or but you really have to do that outside of the context of class because like
Right.
there's just no place to do that in a live class. So
Right.
I think to expect yourself to like figure those things out in a classroom setting just like isn't totally realistic either. So the play part is really so practical also.
Yeah, it's so practical. I mean, I think when I was training when I was in New York City taking some classes, I remember taking this one class. And in New York City, it's cool. Well, both cool and not cool, but cool that the principals all will come take the open classes in the morning before the day to like warm up and get extra time. It's cool in that you can watch them dance, but like not cool in that they're like in your beginner class wearing their pointe shoes, and like therefore the teacher will adjust the level to the pro, and you're like, but I don't know what I'm doing. So
Yeah.
like it's both cool and not cool. And just watching how much professionals play is incredible. Like between combinations while the teacher's explaining stuff, they're doing the pirouette again, they're trying the movement again. And you look around the room and the new people, the adults are just standing there with their arms not necessarily crossed, but like, down,
Yeah.
just listening, which of course is respectful and you're learning what's going on and you need to focus on that because that's where you are. But once you get to that point of being more comfortable and getting to that level, the amount of play is incredible. And like after class, three of the guys were there and they were like having a pirouette competition with each other, like who can do more. And then they're like pushing each other, like, hey, I bet I can do six, whatever's going on. And they're just like messing around, just like
Yeah.
playing around, showing each other their jumps, and just like it's like that's play, right? Like that's them honing their craft. That's like the real way that people are actually honing their craft, is not just in class.
Yeah, and I think it also sustains the joy component too.
Yeah, totally. Gives
Staying
you some
connected.
autonomy.
Yeah, and you're like staying connected to almost that childlike quality of like doing things just for fun. I think as adults
Yeah.
we move away so much from doing things for fun. It's like everything has to be productive. And so I think moving
Yeah.
away from like productive mode into play mode is so helpful because Point is already stressful in its own way, even just from like a physical standpoint of like you're trying
Right.
to think about so many things. So when you kind of lift a little bit of the pressure of like this session has to be productive, like I have to accomplish something and just move it into like I just want to have fun on my shoes today. I think it preserves the joy.
Yeah. And ironically, you will progress more than
Yes.
necessarily always being about progress. It's so ironic
Yeah.
and annoying. It's so
Yeah.
annoying as type A people. It's so
I know.
annoying.
I know it is. It's so funny. I know a lot of adults, like, even after putting in the work, and I know because this is me, even after putting in the work to train and build strength, there is a very real fear when it comes to
Mm,
introducing new steps. And many of us hit a point where maybe we're technically ready or physically ready, but psychologically still kind of stuck and afraid to really go for it when it comes to learning new steps. So, how can we as students build that confidence to start pushing out of our comfort zone? Like, I'm thinking specifically of things in center, like starting to do turns, a lot of the things that many of us find scary.
right. They can be scary for many people, even in soft shoes. And then once you get
Yeah.
into the point shoe realm, it's kind of crazy. Yeah. So there's a couple of thoughts I have on this. Number one, know your type of person. If you're the type of person where you need a trusted professional to look at you and say, like, you're ready to try this, then take a private lesson and
Yeah.
tell your teacher, like, hey, I want to get to the next level, but I'm not sure if I'm ready for these things yet. Can you look at me and help me discover what I'm ready for in the next realm? If that's you, then do that. Take one. You don't even need like it's not like we need to have a weekly commitment here of like $1 million in private lessons or something. Just like take one private lesson that's 38 minutes, come warmed up, 30-minute private lesson, and just ask them to, yeah, just ask their advice about what you could be working on. Make sure it's someone who you trust and who believes that adults can do point and who believes in you and your progress. Like, make sure you know it's a teacher who you really trust. But that's the first type of person. Now, if you're the second type of person, which I'm a little bit more of this type of person, is like, I like to try new scary things in private so I can take my time and I can not be afraid of messing it up. And I don't like want opinions on my fear, like, or on
Yeah.
my failure in these moments of like difficulty. I just want to be by myself and try it. And then I can get feedback from someone. So if that's you, then that's a little different situation. And I think we're probably going to have listeners who are some of each. Do you know which one you are, Hannah?
Totally. I think I'm the person who needs to like have someone that I trust tell me you can do it. Like I really benefit from that push.
To like push, right? So
Yes.
right, so in that, and you were just telling me about the intensity you were at, where they were giving you that
Yes.
kind of push of like, hey, it's time to try this, like it's time to give
Mm-hmm.
it a go.
Yep.
And so if that's you, then do that. Give yourself that gift of like these things, like help yourself open that door to the things that you can then try and work into your practice. If you're the type who kind of wants to try things in private, then what I suggest to do is pick a dance or something that you want to work towards that has some of these scarier elements in them. So you have kind of a reason to try them and you can experiment with them in context of something else. So, like, why do you want to do a pirouette? Because I want to do the third shade variation. Okay, cool. And then you kind of put it in context. Sometimes when it's in context of a dance, it can be a little bit less intimidating to give it a try because you've got a lot of things. You've got kind of a lead up around it. There's more to do than just that one thing. And then the last thing around the fear is like try to push your physical limits of comfort at the bar and also just in like other things in life that are like a little bit scarier for you, right? Like, so at the bar, an example would be stand in susu, holding on with two hands on a really sturdy bar, and then walk your hands really far to the side and lean your body to the side as if you're in a partnering class. You will feel your abs engage. You're going to feel a different spot on your shoes. You're going to feel that you can be on another place in your point shoe than you thought. A lot of times when we're in a fearful place, we think there's only one place we can stand on our point shoes, but actually a lot more of the shoe is available to us in the front edge of the shoe. And so if you can lean side to side, you can kind of start to feel how much of your shoe is safe and where you feel stable in the shoe. Start to do finger turns at the bar. So whether it's down the bar or two hands on the bar, whip turn, développé front, à la seconde into passé. As you go à la seconde, start to turn away from the bar. Passé, pedal yourself around with your hands back to the bar. And then try to increase the speed on that and see how fast you can go before you start panicking. And then you panic, you calm down, you listen to your favorite song, you let your heart rate come back down, and you try again. You just sort of get your confidence up with that feeling of spinning. And then this is probably, hopefully this is helpful advice, but I'm going to say it anyways, even though it's hard to access. Partnering classes can be so helpful for fear
Yes.
because you have someone kind of holding you up. Now, I know it's hard to find partnering classes as adults. Oh my gosh, it is so hard. If you can find a male teacher and just take a private lesson with them and ask them to partner you in your boy shoes,
Yeah.
get your husband and watch a partnering video online and tell him like where to hold and stuff. This can be really helpful for getting you away from the bar without being alone away from the bar,
Yeah.
which can be a little scary. So yeah, those are some tips for getting over the fear. And then I think for me, the times when I found the most progress the most about fear was when I started taking martial arts because that is very scary
Interesting.
physically. And so then I realized that Pointe was not that dangerous compared with somebody trying to choke you out or rip your arm off. And so after that experience of like taking jujitsu class and like being in sort of like semi life threatening situations, that kind of took a little bit of perspective into my Pointe
Yeah.
shoes. And that was a big, like, obviously, that's not good advice for anyone. So I'm not really giving it as advice. I'm just telling you that for me, it took kind of going to a more extreme
Yes.
physical limit outside and learning how to breathe through it and learn that I was still safe and I had control over the situation and that I could be in danger while being safe, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I found so much of Point for me has been harnessing my inner dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And so even, to your point about
Mm-hmm.
taking jujitsu and like doing something that's more scary and realizing you can, like I've almost even just had to tell myself in Point, like, this is not as crazy as you're like building it up in your mind.
Yeah.
Like because your nervous system sometimes kind of goes into fight or flight survival, and it's
Full
almost like,
spiral.
yeah, and it's like I have to talk to myself like I am
Yeah.
standing on the outside looking in and like, Hannah, you're okay, it's gonna be fine, like this is not that big of a deal, you're safe, you've trained. Like one of the things I say to myself a lot is like, trust your training, like
Mm-hmm.
you've put in the reps, like you've done the work. So yeah, I think so much of it is like harnessing your self-talk and getting to a place where you can recognize when you're starting to get into that heightened state and then be able to talk yourself down and calm yourself a little a little bit, because it is
Yeah.
scary. Like there's things that I think like in some way like there's no way around feeling a little bit scared, but
Yeah.
you can manage the degree, I think, to which your mind is just like taking off without you.
Right. And when your mind takes off, then you kind of lose sensation in your
Yeah.
feet or like your mind, you're up in your head, right? But you need to be down in the floor. You need to be feeling that you are still touching the floor. You're still touching the floor. You're still touching the floor. I'm still on the floor, even though you feel like you're off the floor. You're like, I'm still touching the floor. My shoe still has contact. I'm still in my shoe. I am
Yeah.
here, like grounded, like having that grounding feeling is huge. And I think that's where sometimes when you're in a group class that's moving too fast for you, in soft shoes, that's one thing. Like, obviously, that still can be super intimidating. But in Pointe shoes, a lot of times what I see is if you're in a class that's moving too fast, you just don't do anything at all because there's not really like a halfway you can do in Pointe. Like, either you can get up or you can't. And so, if you're in this state of like major anxiety when you're in Pointe class, like you have to keep up or you're not going to be safe or you're going to hurt yourself or whatever it is, and then you just find yourself stopping. That's where it's like, okay, now it's time to remove yourself from that environment for a little while. Maybe you keep going because you like your friends and you want to support your teacher and all of that stuff, but like take yourself out of that environment. Take those things that are putting you in that scary place. Take the private lesson, play with it by yourself, like use these tools that we've been talking about
Yeah.
to break that down so that when you come back to class, you can have a good positive experience. Because the more negative experiences you continue giving yourself, the worse it gets. If you are just hammering yourself with negative Pointe experiences, it's going to take a lot more positive experiences to sort of undo that feeling in your body that you're in danger.
Yeah.
So you just don't keep putting yourself in that situation where you're embarrassed because you can't do it or you're afraid you're going to get hurt or whatever. That is, like, work that out and then go back
Yeah.
so you don't have that continually facing you every week.
Yeah. Yeah, it is true. It's like if you have a few negative experiences that compound, I think it really builds up the psychological barrier to coming back. Whereas if you
Yeah.
can like keep it as almost like we were talking about earlier, like keeping it in the play
Yeah.
feeling as much as possible, then yeah, and a lot of times that is like we talked about, like that's where the progress is going to start to show up anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I even find too, I don't know if you have experienced this, but I find that so much of how I feel about a session or even how like productive a session is so dependent on mood for me.
Oh,
Like if I
totally.
come into point and I'm carrying like a lot of frustration or angst from the day into my point session versus if I come in happy and relaxed. And so I think even like having an awareness of that can be really helpful. Like it's been days where I'm like,
Yeah.
I have the physical energy to do a point class, but like I know I'm not in a good headspace to do a point class. So either I need to skip it or I need to get myself into a better headspace before I
Yeah.
start. Because if
That's
you,
huge.
yeah, because then it's like if you have a bad session because you came in, you had all this tension and all this frustration, it sets you back for your next session.
So add that to your shoe log. How you
Yeah.
felt before class, how you felt after class, and start to notice those patterns because it's huge. Point is like once you're at this level that we're talking about here, point is like 90% mental.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you have the strength. You can probably do a single leg releve. You can probably do a pirouette. You can probably do most everything, but you won't until you feel ready. And your
Yeah.
body won't until you feel ready. You won't give yourself the amount of push you need to do these things until you feel ready. You just won't. Like if I told you to jump off of a cliff, you would not jump. I know you're capable of
Yeah.
jumping 2 feet, but if you are seeing a cliff there, you're just not gonna do it. Like you've lived this long, you know better than to do that. And
Yeah.
so your body's not gonna put your full effort into anything if you feel that there's a cliff right there. And
Yeah.
that's what we need to work out in point is how you teach yourself that there is not a cliff there, or if there like stop like if there is truly a cliff there because you're not ready, then that we need to address that strength wise. But if there is a cliff there only because it's in your mind, that's where we need
Yeah.
to work on addressing.
Kind of in the same vein of even just talking about like motivation and our journey, when it comes to practicing at home, beyond just drilling technique, what do you recommend to keep adult dancers feeling motivated, inspired, and that sense of accomplishment, especially in
Mhm.
seasons where the progress might be feeling a little bit slow?
Yeah, these seasons are a little tough because they feel like a plateau. And whenever you're in a plateau, I always think about stopping what you're doing. Just like put aside your vegetables, which are your releves and your échappés and everything like that, and have a dessert. Have something sweet. Do a variation that you've been putting off learning because you're too afraid to do it, or you think you need to do only the releves. Like put put that aside and just have some fun. Like do something that is a combination, a variation, a dance that you've always wanted to do and take the time to actually work on it. Not just do it once because you won't get it right the first time. Nobody does. I'm not saying that you are incompetent. I'm saying nobody gets things right on the first time. Do it for a few weeks until you are bored of it and then go back to your vegetables. But just give yourself like a staycation, if you will, of like a point staycation where you get to kind of pick whatever you want to do and just let it be your choice. Again, you can always I know I always come back to private lessons. If you have like a teacher who's doing group classes who does this stuff, do it. I'm just assuming that many of us are in the same boat where your group classes locally are like limited. But you can literally hire a teacher to just teach you a fun dance, not even a variation if they're too hard, just like to make up a fun combo with you and just to do it with you for a few weeks. Like you can literally just inject joy into your journey with a person. Like it could even be a more advanced person in class who you
Yeah.
just hire to make up a combo for you and have some fun. Like they don't need to be someone like too fancy to just have some fun with you and inject some joy into your journey. So I would really recommend that just doing a really fun dance. Show yourself what you have. Like you could show someone at the end or you can just do it for yourself or for fun, but you have accomplished it. And you've seen like, oh, I know enough point steps to do a dance. Because if you're just always doing four échappés, two sus, one releve, passe, change, you're like, I don't know anything. But you
Yeah.
do know things. You know plenty of things. And by doing a dance, like we talked about last time, actually a lot of a dance is on flat. And so you're going to learn about how to shape your feet and how to walk and how to do all the little in-between steps that you never got a chance to do in your point shoes. So like take a little time to just have a little point cupcake and do a fun dance. That's my big suggestion.
No, I love that. And I have to testify to how true this is because I was definitely in a slump and like just feeling kind of discouraged and like what am I doing? I'm not progressing at the rate I want to, all the things. And then you had advertised doing the variation on your platform, the Zoom classes. I think it was like an 8-week session, right? Where once a
Yeah,
week.
the waltz of the hours. Yeah, we
Yeah,
did
we
the
worked on a
8 weeks. Yeah.
variation. And I was so hesitant to do it just because I'm like, I don't think I'm good enough. Like, I don't think I'm ready, all this stuff. And I think I reached out to you and was like, do you think I could
Yes.
do this? And you were like, yeah, you totally can. Like, just do it. And so doing that, and I actually did a post about that on social media because doing a variation, which I had never done on Point, is my first time doing anything like that on
So
Point.
exciting.
It completely re-energized and like reinvigorated my point training. Like I mean truly, like I'm not just saying that. Like it completely gave me so much like renewed excitement and energy to work on point because I was like,
Hmm.
oh, like this is what we're doing it for.
Yeah.
Like I think
Right.
I think sometimes class becomes so much a thing in and of itself for adults because we're so limited on performance opportunities and just different things. It's like class kind of becomes like the end all be all, and I think it's really
Right.
easy as adults for it to just get really repetitive. And we're working on the drills, like we want to do it right. I think a lot of adults, because there does tend to be like a type A a type A personality in ballet where it's like we want to do it right, we want to do it technically perfect, we want to make sure we've ticked all the boxes like before we do the thing. And I think there's a lot of insecurity around doing something like a variation and like, am I ready, and all those doubts. And I just think it was such a powerful learning moment for me of like, this is why you put all the work in, is so that you can do something fun and artistic like a variation and feel like, quote unquote, like a real ballerina. like
Yeah.
this is why we do all the time at bar, and we do the drills and take care of ourselves and do our recovery. And it's so that you can then experience what it's like to really dance and to
Mhm.
move to music and like have this great experience. And so I think if you are like me, where you tend to think like, oh, maybe I'm not ready for this, it was so much less about the technical side of whether or not I was ready for it. And it was so much more about like what it did for my motivation and even my confidence of like, because like you said, sometimes like we are more ready than we think and we can do more things than we think we're going to be able to do. And so you get in and maybe you surprise yourself. And like I never did the variation perfectly or even very well at all, but it was more about just doing it and like allowing myself to have that experience and enjoy it. And so I've told so many people that since that class that are kind of like in the slump, I'm like, you should totally do a variation because you have on your
Yeah.
platform, you have several variations, right, that people can choose
Yeah.
from to learn on
For
point.
beginners. Yeah.
Yeah, for
Hmm.
beginners, like some are even with your bar, which I think is so
Right.
fun. And so not letting your level stop you from accessing that enjoyment of ballet through a variation, because it
Right.
really like it was really, really transformative for me. So thank you for that.
That's so great to hear. And I think you're so right about so many things in that what you just said. I think we do get the feeling that class is the goal. And for some people, class is the goal. Like class is, for some people they love class and they just want to do class, and that's fine and great. But I do find that even those people burn out, even though they just like love class. Like they're like, oh, I love class and I just want to do the details. But then they'll slow down. And I'm like, that's because progress isn't linear and you can't only work on the details. You have to put it into practice. You have to put it into a dance. And when you look at how kids learn, they have an exam at the end of the year, you have a recital at the end of the year. They're always putting things into a dance. And so if you have gone 4 years without putting anything into a dance, think about a child from ages 12 to 16. There's no way they've gone all of those years without putting anything into a dance. They're not perfect at age 13 or 14, certainly, but they've definitely done at least a dance by then. They've definitely done at least something that's a combination by then. And so I think if you're that point dreamer architect where it's been your lifelong dream, you probably have put a variation on a pedestal. You have probably put quote unquote dancing in your point shoes on a pedestal, and you think it is like for a different person or for a different version of you or for when you're perfect or whatever. But just like you said, Hannah, that you will get there once you put these little milestones in there, once you put these little things in there that invigorate you. And you're like, oh, wow, we don't just do PK Susu for fun or for like, you know, whatever at the bar. We do it because it's in variations. We do it because it's how you travel across the stage. It's because how you make a level from down to up. And you're like, oh, okay, that's what this is for. I get it. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like if you are someone who has like more of the perfectionist mindset, I know for me sometimes I'm like, is only being able to do it badly going to like make it not fun? And I think one of
Yeah.
the things that I realized was no, like I did it badly and I still had a great time. So
Right.
I also think too sometimes you have to and yeah, that like in some ways is a choice you have to make, you know, like I
Yeah.
could have berated myself after every class and been like, you suck, this wasn't fun. But it's like you can also just choose to enjoy it as like a celebration of where you are and
Right.
that you get to do something like this and that in and of itself and like having a body that can move is a blessing. So like why not just be happy about what you can do? And so yeah, I think, you know, sometimes that's also definitely a block for some people is like it's not going to be fun if it can't be perfect. I'm like, no, it really can be fun, even if it doesn't look very good. Maybe just don't film
And
yourself if
yeah,
you're worried about that.
right. Yeah, and well, I think if you want it to be perfect, then like I think if you had kept working on the waltz of the hours, because we only just
Yeah,
learned it. By the end of eight
yeah,
weeks, we had only just learned the whole thing. We hadn't even like really
yeah.
practiced it over and over again because that was a long and hard variation.
It
So it
was
took us
so
eight
hard.
weeks. Like it took us 8 weeks to learn just to learn it.
Yeah,
And so if you actually wanted to perfect it, like if you were going to perform it, you would have
yeah.
then practiced it for another 3 months.
Mhm.
And then it would have been like perfect, right? Or like or quote
Yeah,
unquote perfect to your current level. And so I think we do not give ourselves enough credit for the what practice will do for you. So the first time you try something, it will be terrible. Like I said before, you're not incompetent. It's just the first time you try it. How could you do it perfectly? Like
yeah,
there's details you're going to work out. I mean, I think you can look at a professional dancer and see them try a variation first time and think that they just did it perfectly right there. But probably they've already done most of those steps in other contexts. And
yeah,
it's not the first time they're seeing those transitions.
yeah,
And at their level, it wasn't perfect. Their coach is going to rip them to shreds for all the details they did not get right with their head and their fingers and their emotions and their artistry and all that stuff. So at whatever level you are, you need to
yeah.
practice in order for the dance you're going doing to come up to the level that you're at currently.
Yeah, and a lot of times even at the intensive I was at this past week, you know, some of the teachers are like, "Oh yeah, like I did this variation when I was 14 in school." And so a lot of times even with the
Yeah,
professionals, it's like some of the things that they're doing now as professionals have still been in their orbit, you know, since they were
right.
kids. And I do think you're totally right. Like we put this really unrealistic expectation on ourselves as adults to just be like, it has to be great the first time. And that's just not realistic. And I think like the
No.
longer, at least for me, one of the things I've really learned about myself with Point is just like the longer you avoid the discomfort of sucking, the longer you're just putting off getting better. Like
Mm.
you have to just lean into it and like go through it. Like you can't just like sit and wait and think that all of a sudden one day you're just gonna like be able to do it well. Like you have to go through the rough part. Like it has to like
Oh,
look kind of cringy, you know, for a little bit. Like it has to look not great. You don't just like wake up one day and be able to do like a perfect arabesque or whatever. Like you have to do arabesques over and over again and they have to not look great. And then one day they look better, you know, but it's like it's so hard. It's just so hard.
nobody wanted that advice, Hannah.
Nobody wanted that advice, but I'm like, listen, like it's yeah, it's not the fun advice, but I'm like I'm really it's like a season I've been in of just leaning into the discomfort of not looking good at doing things, but like doing them anyway, because it's really hard and it's not fun. But the
Not
fun
fun.
part
But look where you've
is,
come. Look
yeah,
how
and
far you've
that's what
come.
I was gonna say is the fun part is actually seeing progress because for the longest time
Yeah.
I didn't see any progress because I was too uncomfortable with feeling incompetent or like out of my comfort. And so I would just stay, you know, in a very small framework of things that I was like
Right.
felt more comfortable with. And yes, it's rough to push out of that, but the really fun part is that then you start seeing progress and like that becomes its own incentive and reward. And so then the sucking isn't as bad. So it's like
Right. Because you know it's come. You know that
yeah,
the fun is on the other
yeah,
side of it. And
yeah,
you don't stop seeing
totally.
it as sucking. You just start seeing it as like the first step.
Yeah, yeah, you start seeing it as a process. I think yeah, your own inner critic gets a little bit turned down and softer, you know? I think like I some of that really harsh like I feel like I I've like struggled probably my whole life with like talking to myself like a really mean PE coach, you know, that's like,
Totally.
you suck, try harder, you know. And so I think learning how to turn some of that down by pushing through, but it's like you can't learn how to disconnect from that without pushing through the suck. But yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, you have to go there and see that it's not a big deal. Like you have
Yeah.
you have to literally be there and see that it's not a problem. And
Yeah.
then it'll be easier.
Yeah, and you survive. So this series has been so fun. We have gone on a full journey. Like from
Yeah.
like getting the shoes, like am I ready for the shoes? First few months, now talking about this longer haul with them and progress. So to close out, I would love to know if you could leave our listeners with one mindset shift or one piece of advice regarding their point journey, what would that be?
I think Pointe often has a sense of urgency around it that holds us back. I think we have a sense of urgency that we have to get pointe shoes before a certain day, or we have to leave the bar by a certain time, or we have to be over the box by a certain time, or whatever we have around pointe. And I think this sense of urgency to be perfect, to be there now, actually is what stops us from enjoying the journey. And enjoying the journey is what you need to actually get where you're trying to go. So it's so ironic, but you have to try to think about removing that sense of urgency. And I think that a lot of that urgency comes from thinking that you have a time limit or that your feet have a time limit for how long you can do pointe. And so start looking around yourself and see the people who are older than you doing pointe. And you see that there's more time than you think. And when you have good recovery and good strength and good shoes and you're surrounded by a good team, you have a lot more time than you think you do. And so when you release some of that sense of urgency, you allow yourself the time to play, even though it might not feel like it's the most productive. You allow yourself time to explore a variation. You allow yourself to take a private lesson before you think you're ready to do it. You allow yourself to skip a class in person to work on something that you need to work on by yourself to enjoy that class more next week. When you release that pressure on yourself, you allow the exploration that is absolutely required to progress on pointe. Pointe is not linear, and if you have hit a wall, the only way out is to go around it. And if you are worried about time, you're just going to keep banging your head against that same wall and you won't allow yourself the time to take a detour and to see where else you might head. So just know that you have time in your pointe journey. There's not really a rush. Like it feels like there's a rush because you don't like to suck, like what you were saying in your last advice. So it feels like there's a rush to get better, but try to take away that rush and be like, this is how long it's going to take me. And I have time to explore. I have time to play. I have time to take diversions. I have time to talk to experts. I have time to ask my friends how they're doing it. I have time to just, you have time. You have time with your pointe shoes. And that's what I would hope to leave you with.
Yeah, I think it's learning to love the journey as much as like you love the idea of the destination instead of just loving like, oh, someday I'm going to be able to do pirouettes on pointe. Learning to love every part of that process, I think can just really change just how you're approaching the day in and day out of showing up and putting your shoes on,
Yeah, that's beautifully said. I think it's if you love pointe, you're here listening to us. You've made it somehow 3 hours listening to us gab on about this. You've made it 3 hours of this. So you love pointe. You want to be able to do it. So, learn. Most of pointe is like a mess. Most of pointe is being messy. So learn to love the mess and you'll love your pointe journey a lot more. And truly, I believe you can go much further than you think you can go. I think you, Hannah, and you listener, and you adult who is not sure if you can do it, I think you can go much further than you think you can, because our mind and our fears are our biggest limiter. So what you dream of, go try to make it happen, because I think you can. I think you can go far.
Yeah. How can people stay connected to you or find you online?
You can find me on the socials at Broche Ballet, and my website is brocheballet.com. Come check it out. Come say hello. Tell me about your pointe journey, and yeah, let's get to where you're going.
Yes. Yeah. And real quick plug, if you, jumping back to one of the first questions in this episode about structure, if you're someone who is struggling to have a structured plan, find a way to move through your journey in a structured way, I cannot recommend enough the Pointe program that Julie has on her platform. I'm currently going through that right now, and it has been so incredibly helpful for actually feeling like I'm getting wins on the board and actually seeing progress to go through the different steps and just the whole journey in a structured way. So definitely check that out. I'm going to put the links to everything in the show notes so that you can find Julie and find her website. So thank you so much, Julie, for doing this series. This was an absolute joy, and I loved every minute.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Hannah. I'm really glad we got to go in depth on all of these topics, and I hope it helps someone out there on their pointe journey.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love for you to share it with a friend or leave a quick review. It really helps more adult dancers find the podcast. All the links and resources we mentioned today are waiting for you in the show notes. And if you want more adult ballet content in between episodes, come hang out with me on Instagram @thebusybunhead. See you next week after class.